Now we're back to see how monopolies behave, and they behave similar in certain ways. First of all, they are a profit maximizer as well. And being a profit maximizer, they will follow the profit maximizing rule, which is producing where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue. Or again, as close as possible without the marginal cost being greater. So on a table like down here, the marginal cost may be equal to the marginal revenue, or it may not. It depends how I set the numbers. But on a graph like here, I'll get to just a minute, then they can always be equal. Now, the monopoly faces the demand curve for the market. So the price makers demand, and again, monopoly are price makers, they face the market demand. And so what they want to do is set the highest price possible to sell the profit maximizing output there. So they determine what the profit maximizing output is, and then they set the highest price possible to sell that amount. In competition, they're price takers. They don't set the price. But if you have price making power, then you have some control of your price. And with the monopoly, they have complete control over the price. So here's some numbers here. Let's see how it works. Now notice that we have different prices to sell more, and that's because they face the market demand. So they are not a price taker, unlike with competition. So in competition, a table like this, you would have the same price all the way down, probably a very low price. In monopoly, they can decide what price they're going to sell at. Now, who determines these two columns here? That's the consumers. So this is the demand here, the market demand, and that comes from consumers. Some people think that a monopoly can make you pay any price. That's not true. A monopoly cannot make you pay any price at all. You decide whether or not you're going to pay that price. In this case, if they charge $150, they're going to sell nothing. So the point of a monopoly is not to charge outrageous prices. The point of monopoly is to be using your price-making power to maximize profits. So going back to Microsoft, even though Microsoft is not a pure monopoly, they do have a lot of monopoly power. And what they want to do is sell their products at a price where they maximize their profits. So they don't want to charge $1 million for a copy of their software. They want to charge something that allows them to sell copies of the software to a lot of people, and they can make more money that way. So then we have our total revenue, and that is price times quantity. And so if they charge $150, they will sell nothing. If they charge $140, they'll sell one. If they charge $130, they'll sell two, and 2 times 130 would be 260. And then they charge $120, they'll sell 3, and 3 times 120 is 360. And then that'll be 440. That'll be 500. And that would be, make sure I get the right number down. Six times 90 is 540. Drew a blank there in my head for my times tables. And so the margin revenue is the change in total revenue. And so if we go from selling 0 to 1, our revenue goes up by $140. And then we go from 1 to 2, our revenue goes up by $120, right? Now my question to you is, why is it not $130? We sold the second one at $130. How come my revenue only went up by $120, which is the correct number, but where's the other $10? And the answer is that the first one we were selling at $140, but if you want to sell 2 of them, we got to sell both of them at $130. And again, that's a good effect and bad effect of dropping your price. The good effect of dropping your price is that you sell more, 1 to 2. The bad effect is that every one you sell, you get less money. And so we do gain $130 on the second one, but we lost $10 on the first one, and that's why we're missing $10. We go to 2 to 3, we drop our price to $120, so we gain $120 on the third one, but we do lose $10 a piece on those 2 there. And so it doesn't go up by $120, it goes up by $100. And so your marginal revenue is not going to be the same number as price. Marginal revenue starts out at the same number with the first one, but after that, marginal revenue is going to be less than the price. Why? Because again, there's a bad effect of dropping your price. And so you sell the fourth one, it goes up by 80. Fifth one goes up by 60, and the fourth one goes up by 40. And notice that if you keep dropping our price, eventually our marginal revenue will turn negative, and our total revenue will hit a maximum point and then start to come down. Also notice that the marginal revenue is falling twice as fast as the demand line here. If I were to plot this, demand would look like this, and the marginal revenue will be inside there, falling twice as fast. And so if this is falling by $10 a piece, you have to drop your price to $10 each time to sell one more, then this would be falling 20. If my price is falling $20 each time, this would be falling by 40. That's the mathematical relationship between marginal revenue and the demand line for a price maker. Now we have marginal cost and total cost, and our total cost if we produce nothing is 200, and that would be our startup cost, our fixed cost. And to produce the first one, it's going to take $40 more to produce the first one. So I add that to our startup cost of 200, I get 240. And then it goes up by 20, so the marginal revenue of the second one would be 20. And to make the third one, marginal cost to be 20. And to make the third one, your marginal cost is going to be 40. That means to make the third one, it's going to add $40 of cost to my business. Tack on 40 to there, that's 300. Another 60 to make the fourth one. And now we know the total cost of the fifth one is 440, which is how much more than before? It's 80. And then 6, my marginal cost is 100, so I add that to my 440, and that'll be 540. My marginal cost is going to fall, hit a minimum, and then start to rise. When it's rising, that's diminishing returns, and so diminishing returns would start at the third one. That's exactly when my marginal cost starts to rise from the second to the third one. So if we're going to produce where the marginal cost has already fallen and then started to go up. And so if we do produce, it would be on the upward side of marginal cost. I want to take advantage of marginal cost falling. And then I want to look at the third one, the fourth, fifth, sixth, one by one. Now, we don't even have to come up with a profit column to know where I'm going to maximize my profit, because I just want to compare these two numbers here. So my marginal cost is falling, and then it starts to rise. The question is, do I want to make the third one? And the answer would be yes, because if I make the third one, it's going to bring in $100 of revenue. It adds $40 of cost. That is beneficial to the seller. That would be a good one to produce. The fourth one, they're closer, but still the marginal revenue is still higher than the marginal cost. That's a good one to produce. The fifth one, not. That's not a good one to produce because now the marginal cost is higher. And so if I do produce, I will produce 5. Again, the option of shutting down can always be taken if my best production number is still worse than my startup cost. So one option is to shut down and eat essentially your $200 of startup cost, fixed cost, or produce at the best point. And so let's see. Just note that being a monopoly does not mean you're going to make profit. A monopoly can lose money like anyone else. Polaroid was a monopoly for a long time in terms of being able to have an Instamatic camera, and they still had the monopoly on Instamatic cameras. The problem was that no one wanted those anymore when digital cameras came out. So if you shut down, you would lose $200. And I can do total revenue minus total cost. Or I can look at my margins here. And if I make the first one, I can make $100 on that one, right? So if I'm in debt, say I borrow $200 to start my business from a local bank, I got to pay $200 back. Well, the first one will give me $100 right there. I can pay back half that loan. And if you don't believe that, take the total revenue minus the total cost. Here I make another $100. So now I'm got all my startup costs back, and you can see 260 minus 260 would be 0. And then I can make $60 on that third one. I make another 20 there, And if I take 440 minus 360, that'll be the 80. Here, if I produce that one, I lose $20 back. I'm back to 60. And here I would lose 60, and I'm back to 0. So this is the best. Oops. I said I wouldn't produce the fifth one. I'd produce the fourth one. Always double check your answers. And therefore, that fourth one is where we maximize profits. And then I'll do the same thing with graphs, and we'll come back for part 2.